Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a happy Monday and you're doing well. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. And if you want to get notified when I make posts, hit the post notification bell. Ever since renting something instead of buying something became a concept, like leasing a car that you're only going to have for 2 years instead of buying it and selling it in 2 years after it's depreciated in value, or buying a set of tools for the one DIY project you have around the house and then letting them sit in the garage for 2 years until you have your next DIY project. There's often been a debate on which one's better. Which one's better, renting or buying? And that's what we're going to get into today. Renting or buying in the form of a house. Which one's better? A roof over your head that you rent or that you buy? And the answer is, it depends. First, we'll make a case for renting. Currently, a little over 1/3 of millennials own a house. And of that 1/3, 2/3 of that regrets buying a house, with the number one reason being hidden costs that they didn't expect. Because what they probably did was they saw that they were paying $1,000 a month in rent and that their mortgage was only going to be $1,000. Well, the difference is when you pay $1,000 in rent or $1,000 in mortgage, if the water heater breaks and you're paying rent, the landlord has to fix it. If the water heater breaks in your house that you're paying on, you're the landlord. You have to pay for that to get fixed. So that's one of the hidden costs that you can have, or a leaky roof, or anything that goes bump in the night that you have to fix on your house that you wouldn't have to fix on a house that you rent. Typically, if you look at a rent payment, it includes such things as cable, water, trash service, maintenance, and everything else that's included in a rent payment. All of the things that I just named, if you buy a house, they're all you. You're the trash service, you're the maintenance, you pay for the water, and you pay for the cable. Or you mooch off of somebody else's Hulu. Now, for first-time home buyers, let's run a couple numbers. Let's say you have $1,000 rent payment and you want to have $1,000 mortgage payment because that's how much you can afford, right? Well, if we do that math, $1,000 mortgage at the current interest rates looks like about a $300,000 house. This $300,000 house, up front, you're going to have to put a 20% down payment on the house, or $60,000, so you don't have to pay the PMI on it or private mortgage insurance. Private mortgage insurance is basically just an extra fee that's added onto your mortgage payment that you have to pay so the bank can ensure that they're going to get all the money that they need to get from you because you don't have enough hold on the house. If you only own about 5% of the house, or $15,000 on a $300,000 house, then the bank's going to start sweating a little bit. You can pay as low as 3% upfront on your house, but in this case, that's still $9,000, and then you have to add on the PMI that you're going to be paying on the house until you pay off 20% of the house's value. Not to mention that 60 to 70% of your initial payments on the mortgage go towards interest and not the principal of the house. So you're not going to get to 20% in 20% of your mortgage life. You're going to get to 20% probably about halfway through your mortgage life. On top of having 20% down, you could have to pay 2 to 3% in closing costs up front. So that's an additional $6,000 to $9,000 that you might have to pay just in closing costs just to get the house on the house that you've already paid 20% down on. So you're looking at 22 to 23% of the house paid down on the house up front. That's something that you're going to need to save up for, and you can't just make with a monthly payment. And then the last thing that really gets people is the HOA fees. If you live in a neighborhood or somewhere that requires a homeowners association, you're probably going to have to pay fees on that. Typically, if you pay rent somewhere, the homeowner or the landlord will pay this. Sometimes they don't, but as a general rule of thumb, if you're paying rent, you're not paying the HOA fee, or it's included in your rent. Now back to maintenance. If your water heater breaks in an apartment that you rent, then the maintenance crew will come up and fix it. If your water heater breaks in your house, you have to fix it. You are the maintenance crew. So in order to be prepared for this, you need to set aside 2 to 4% of the value of your home every year for maintenance. Now you may not need this every month or every year, but when something does come up, you may need a couple of months or maybe even a year or two's worth of maintenance costs that you've saved up to pay for said issue, like a faulty roof that needs to be fixed. In the case of a $300,000 house, This could be anywhere from $6,000 to $12,000 a year, or $500 to $1,000 a month. So on top of your $1,000 mortgage that you're paying, you're saving up an additional $500 to $1,000 a month just to keep the house up and running. However, owning a home is not all negative. In fact, you do have a mortgage, and at the end of the mortgage, assuming you've made all your payments and you're up to date on everything, then your house is paid off and you own the house and you have no more payments to make towards a mortgage. Now, let's say on the flip side, you have an apartment or a house that you've rented for 30 years. At the end of 30 years, you still have a house or apartment rent that you have to pay. So that's the benefit, is that in the long term, eventually you won't have a payment to make, and that's just extra cash flow into your bank account every month that you can just use on whatever you want to use it on. Not to mention that while not guaranteed, you can sell your house for more money than you bought it for, therefore making a profit on the house that you bought, that you lived in for X amount of years. When you go to move out of an apartment or a house that you rent, you don't get any money, you just don't have a rent payment anymore. And unless you're not making your payments and your house gets foreclosed on, no one can sell your house except for you. If your landlord at a place that you rent decides that they don't want to keep up with the place anymore, they can sell the property to someone else. And then that person can then say that you can't live there anymore and that they're doing something else with it, or they can raise your rent. On the note of raising rent, that's something that can happen even if the landlord stays the same. They can raise rent year over year because you typically only signed a year lease or 2-year lease. And then at the end of that, they can say, well, it costs this much more in this part of town to live here, so this is what your new payment is. But on a fixed mortgage, you pay the same amount every month for 15 or 30 years. And then at the end of that, you're done. But the rent can increase year over year as much as they want, as much as the market allows. So if home owning is too expensive and renting is throwing away money, then what should you do? Well, it depends on your situation. If your situation is that you're young and you're going to be bouncing around from place to place for a while, you should rent and save up for a hefty down payment on a house when you eventually decide to settle down. And by settling down, I mean that you're planning on living there for 5 years or more. If you're planning on living there for 5 years or less, renting's probably your best option because of the fees that you'll incur on the front and back end of this deal that could make you go under on your payments. Also, if you have a low credit score, renting's probably your best option until you raise your credit score. Your credit score is what the bank lenders and the mortgage lenders base what percentage your interest rate will be on your mortgage for the life of the mortgage. So if you have a bad credit score, they could give you a higher percentage than if you had a good one. And even a 1% difference causes an enormous difference at the end of a 30-year mortgage. If you were to apply for a loan on a $300,000 house and had a good credit score, you would probably get around a 3% interest rate right now. And at the end of a 30-year mortgage, you would have paid $124,000 in interest. Now, take into account you have a slightly below average credit score and they give you a 4.5% interest. Well, it's only 1.5% more interest, but over the life of a 30-year mortgage, you pay $197,000 in interest. That's $73,000 more. So it may be in your best interest over the life of a mortgage if you were to rent for a while, raise your credit score, and wait till you can get a better interest rate on your mortgage. Finally, I personally wouldn't recommend buying a house until you have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, a 20% down payment, and 2 to 3% saved up for closing costs. This is all just to keep you at a peace of mind while you're going through this process. If you're a first-time home buyer, this is going to be a stressful process that you're going to need all the money set aside so that you know that you're okay without having to take out more in loans. Just because you're taking on new responsibilities and need some time to adjust to your new responsibilities doesn't mean that Murphy's Law is going to stop anytime soon. And if your plan is just to take from your retirement account so you can pay yourself back later, I wouldn't do this because taking a loan on your retirement account slows down the growth on your retirement account and affects your future self. It helps you in the short term, but in the very long term, this is not a good plan to take from your own retirement account. It's basically like stealing from future you. Also, if you don't do it correctly, you're going to incur fees, penalties, and taxes that you all have to pay. It's going to be way more costly to take from your retirement accounts than it's going to be just to wait a couple years, save up for a down payment, and pay it with the cash that you have on hand. In conclusion, it's wise for you to evaluate your life situation before you decide on whether you're renting or buying. Evaluate all options and make sure that you're financially secure in whichever option you decide to do. If you're going to be on the move a lot, it's probably better to rent for now. But if you're looking to settle down and you have good financial security around you, like a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, then it might be better for you to buy. But whatever the case may be, it's up to you, and you're going to have to look at all variables that are included to make the best decision for you and your family. If you want to get started investing to save up for a house, you can use the M1 Finance or Robinhood links down below in the description to get started today. With that being said, let me show you what I've invested in M1 Finance for this week. I've invested $10 into each of these stocks so that I can show you that the S&P 500 grows over time. Let me generate the random numbers and then I'll tell you what they are. At 292, we have LMT or Lockheed Martin. At 56, we have ADP or Automatic Data Processing. At 114, we have CMS or CMS Energy. At 449, we have TWTR or Twitter. At 493, we have WHR or Whirlpool Corporation. At 54, we have ATO or Atmos Energy. And at 331, we have NTAP or NetApp. So these are my 7 random stocks for the week. And as you can see, I'm investing my $70 or $10 a stock into each one of these right now. Again, if you want to get started investing, you can use the M1 Finance or Robinhood links down below in the description. Make sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, see ya.